Hello, everyone. This is George Fortlaga, and I'd like to welcome you to session 4 of the Get It Done in 120 Days Writing and Publishing program. So just wanted you to ask yourself some questions, which is, from scale 1 to 10, first is how determined are you to carve time each and every day to finish X amount of words? So again, we're trying to aim for between 1 to a maximum of 6 pages or even more if you're inclined to. So ideally, you'd like to pick a time of that day when you're fresh and productive, such as early in the morning, like 4 or 5 a.m., or because a lot of people will pick early evening or even late at night, 10 or 11, except that usually, most of the time, people are tired at this time. So pick wisely. Fresh is usually the best day to write a book, or pages of your book, when your mind is still kind of not exhausted. And second question would be, how disciplined are you at sitting down for 2 or more hours and not allow yourself to be distracted by phone calls, interruptions from your partner, kids, dogs, friends, and that kind of thing. So you really have to take this seriously. You have to write at the same time every day for the same amount of time. Okay, so you're an author once you decide to be. So since you enrolled in this course, you're an author in the making. So you just need your book to announce to everyone in the world that you're serious. So as an upcoming author, all you need to tell people is, yes, I've got a book that will be finished sometime in 2015 or 2016 or 2017, whatever the case may be, right? So try and avoid making excuses like, I haven't done this before, I have 0 qualifications, I'm not used to writing this much, I'm not ready for it, or I'm too busy, which is the most common, right? Just share your story, offload all that content that's in your head, put it onto paper, onto your laptop, and simply get going. So here are some best practices, or what I call my bootcamp rules for finishing a book. So first is what I mentioned previously, which is start at the same time each day. Pick morning or sometime in the evening, and settle on a number of minutes that you'd like to write. Although some people will commit to an hour, I would even recommend that you up that to 2 or even 3 hours if you can. So if you start at 4, you can finish at 7. It can, or 6 o'clock, or if you start at 10 o'clock, for example, you can finish at midnight or 1 o'clock. Up to you. So try and stick to this routine, no matter what your mood or no matter how busy you are. The important thing is to do it regularly. And then again, aim for X amount of pages and words per day. Remember that each page is about 333 words, regular sized. And I'd like you to at least do 1,000 words per day to 2,000. So that's 3 to 6 pages. And number 4 is particularly important. Never stop to edit, reorganize, or fix anything during draft days. So your objective is to write all the way to the end of your first draft, no matter how messy or disorganized you think you are. That's fine. Because the minute you look back, you're going to turn to stone. Literally. Well, almost literally. Meaning you're just going to stop, you're going to freeze, and then you're going to go, oh shoot, this looks horrible. How can I make sense out of this? And that's similarly what happens to people who visit renovation sites in the middle of construction. They see the work being done and say, oh my gosh, why does everything look this way? It's the exact same thing with your book. Everything will look like a disaster or a disaster zone, and just ignore it. Just never look back, go straight to the end, leave the fixing or editing or reorganizing, whatever you want to call it, until you finish your first draft. Please, please, please remember this. You will thank me for this because you will end up with a finished book. Otherwise, if you look back, that's kind of when you freeze, turn to stone, and totally abandon your project. Okay, so block all potential distractions, human, electronic, animal, and otherwise. Writing sacred time. Now, number 6 is keep in mind that you're now going to be part of an author community. You're on your way to becoming a go-to expert, influencer, or thought leader. But for the next couple of weeks that you are writing a first draft, you're accountable to me for finishing your book. Okay, so at this point, I hope that you've established who your target audience is, how old they are, whether they're male or female, or in between, occupation, income, interests, and you figured out what kind of pain or problem you're trying to solve. And number 3, why you're the right or the best person to solve this problem. And number 4, what your talks or presentations are going to be like if you're asked to deliver them. So again, the workshops are just merely a device to help you think your ideas through. So knowing how many chapters is the first step. And then really threshing out the ideas of each chapter is key, so that as you write, you have a more fully populated framework of concepts, bullet points for you to draw on, so that the writing becomes easier and faster. So for your introduction, I also want you to remember to share with people why you wrote your book, who the book is meant for, elaborate on your why, what the benefits will be of reading your book, and what the title and subtitle of your book is going to be. And again, remember to choose people to whom you want to dedicate your book to. There's a long and a short version. By now, I hope you've done this already. And then if you choose to write a foreword, think about who in your network, or maybe who in somebody else's network, would you like to invite to write your foreword. Preferably it could be a CEO of a well-known company, another author who sold a lot of books or is famous. Again, the foreword is optional. And then I really encourage you to think about what you'd like to include in your advertisement or order page. At the very minimum, you need to put your contact information, your website, your phone number, so that if people want to order multiple copies of your book or hire you as a speaker, then they can easily find you. So again, this is just a review. You may have done this already after session 3, which is to create those 1-hour courses based on the number of chapters that you're having. So if you have 8 chapters, for example, that's enough hours for a whole day, a full-day workshop. So for each chapter, write 3 to 5 or more main ideas, and then really think these through and pretend that for each chapter you're going to deliver an hour workshop. And if you have to spend 1 whole day or even 2 days really thinking your table of contents through, I suggest that you do it. This will make your 1 to 2 month journey of writing your first draft a lot easier. Okay, so let's talk about marketing. So this early, it's not too far ahead actually to start thinking about what your cover is going to look like. So if you have kind of a dummy title or a title that you think you want to use, you can use that and just create some kind of text-based title, and eventually you may end up with an image. So my first and my second books were all text, there's no images. So why create a dummy cover? Well, you want to create a dummy cover to announce to the world, oh, this is my upcoming book. So even though the cover is not yet final, you can certainly announce that, oh, by the way, this is a working title and a working cover. Both may still change, but I'd just like you to know that this is what my book may end up looking like. So the minute you have a cover, people are like, oh my gosh, this person is serious. Okay, great. Oh, that's the title, and that's a subtitle. Wow, amazing. So now that they know that you're serious and that you're really going to go ahead with this, because after all, it's a cover, right? So how much does it cost to create this? Well, pick up your phone. You can have a cover for as little as $50 or more if you hire someone in North America, or you can get one for about $5. If you go to inexpensive sites like Fiverr.com, again, all you're creating is a dummy cover that will announce to the world, hey, this is who I am. I'm an upcoming author. And it's an advertisement for people to hire you. And as an author, hey, I'm available for speaking engagements, workshops, yada, yada, yada. Remember, you don't have to have an actual finished or printed book to get a speaking engagement. All you need to do is to announce that you have a book coming in 6 months, a year, whatever the case may be, and a cover to show to people. There's your credibility. And also, what that does is kind of force you to really take your book seriously, because now you're announcing to people, this is what my book's going to look like. Something else you may want to consider, and a few companies will ask for this, is to have a one-page virtual author page. So you can take this, kind of incorporate some of it into your own one-pager. So what it is basically on the right side, you get testimonials from places where you've spoken. And below that, you have places where you've actually stood on the stage. So a list of associations, nonprofits, companies. And on the left, the main area in white is the topics that you normally talk about. And then below that is the call to action. Talk to George today if you want to hire him. So it's a basic kind of snapshot about what you talk about, where you've spoken, what the feedback was. Now, it takes time to build this. So you want to use those 3 or 4 to 6 months while you're actually building your book to be able to build this one-page virtual author page. So while you're practicing at a nonprofit, like at a Kiwanis, Rotary, Seroptimist, or Zonta Club, start getting feedback or testimonials from people about your performance as a speaker. And again, practice makes perfect. So if you're not used to speaking, your initial attempts may not be as good as your later ones. So use those 3 to 6 months to really practice your craft as a speaker. And then think about what kind of topics. Come up with 4 to 6 different topics that you can talk about based on your core expertise. And then bottom is call to action. And then accumulate those places where you've been invited to speak, because authors are usually regarded as experts. And as experts, people virtually expect you to have spoken in various places. So again, this takes a few weeks or months to accumulate. But I want you to start thinking about how to fill this up. So when you ask your graphic designer to help you with a virtual cover, ask him or her as well how much it would cost to create this virtual page. Most likely it would cost almost the same as creating a cover. So let's say this is $50, this is another $50. Or if you talk to a contractor from Upwork.com, both these items might cost you less than $50. It might cost you $20 or $30. Again, these are some of the minimum things that you'll need to be able to come across as a credible expert. The virtual author page is not as important as the dummy cover, because the dummy cover you can kind of just attach to your email and say, oh, by the way, this is my upcoming book. A lot of companies wouldn't even ask for this virtual author page, but it's just a nice to have for those companies that want it, but it's not an essential. And then here's something that you can create along with your website. This is a sign-up box or a pop-up box. So this is for someone who wanted to write a book about how to select businesses, and his working title was Beware Pigs Wearing Lipstick. So that was the working title of his book. As you can see, his book is very, very plain. It could have, benefited with a little bit more professional touch. So him was almost like self-graded. He just did this himself. So it actually doesn't look like a book as much as a brochure. So invest a little bit of money to get something like this done rather than this. But the point why I'm showing you this page is that this gentleman created an actual pop-up box where you can leave your name and your email. So that while he was writing his book, he could actually collect names of people who are either going to buy it or going to join his mailing list, right? So whenever you'd go to his author website, so www.author.com, for example, this pop-up box would come up asking for people's names and their emails. Again, I only recommend this up to the time that you finish your book and maybe up to a month after, then take down this pop-up box because it starts to get annoying after that. So this is just to accumulate fans along the way while you're writing your book. Okay, so to get speaking gigs, obviously you need to make X amount of calls a day. So start with making 3 to 5 calls a day. It's understandable if you're not really used to it and maybe a little bit fearful of the process, but you know what? It'll get easier over time. Remember that to get a hold of one person, you need to call 5 people. So in order to get a hold of 5 people, you need to call about 20 or 25. So 80-20 rule, right? So 1 out of 5 is 20%. So that's why it actually works if you can set aside the time to make 25 to 30 calls a day. I know that might sound high for a lot of you who aren't used to calling people that you don't know, but if you want to get some speaking gigs and get traction as a speaker, you do have to put in those calls, especially if you are not very well known in your niche yet. As I said, completing your book is easier. Getting those all-important speaking gigs, especially the paid ones, is a much bigger challenge. And it all begins with lifting the phone. Remember, the phone is your friend, it's not your enemy. Picking up the phone will enable you to connect with decision makers who will connect you to decision makers who will open their purse and pay for you to speak. And again, it's not too early to book those speaking gigs because for the next 3 or 6 months while you're writing a book, you want to get practice. And even if you're used to speaking, you want to practice talking about your book or topics of your book. So anywhere from a 1-hour talk to a 1-day workshop. So start practicing. It might be difficult for those of you who aren't used to calling complete strangers, but you know what? Over time, after a few weeks or maybe a couple of months, you'll wonder why you didn't spend more time doing it. Because really, the phone will bring you money. Okay, so really what we are in, apart from the business of sharing expertise, is we're in the list building business. What does that mean? Well, although selling books is great, the idea here is that you should build as huge a follower list as you can. Because followers will buy not only your first book, they'll buy your second, your third book, so on and so forth, and they will invest in your courses, your workshops. That's what you want to create, essentially, is that little mini empire of information products, which is what books are under, to help you generate either a side income or, if you prefer, a full-time income. So start thinking about what kind of freebie you'll give away in order to get people to give you their email address. So, for example, when people encounter this, maybe give them a free report, or maybe give them a copy of the first chapter. So think of some kind of incentive for people to give you their name and their email. Okay, so apart from a shot of apart from that sign-up box, that freebie, and maybe a photo of you on the landing page of your website, other things you might want to include are contests where each week or every 2 weeks or once a month people can win a free copy of your upcoming book. You might want to partner up with a charity And you might want to also include a link to a blog or an newsletter in case people want to stay updated with what's new once a month or every week in case of a blog. So why should you have a website? Well, for people to take you seriously, especially in the corporate world, first thing they're going to take a look at is your website. And it doesn't have to be a complicated website. It can just be one page announcing who you are, what you do, this is the phone number where to reach me, and this is my book. To as many as 4 to 5 pages or even more. So a website enables you to build your followership. First of all, by enabling or providing an area where people can sign up and stay in touch with you. So the sign-up box is a useful tool for that. And of course, people who have money, that's the first place they'll go. And for people who are going to follow you as you go through your journey of writing a book, having a website, especially that has blogs that are updated either a couple of times a week or every 2 weeks or even once a month, it creates that excitement, and it documents your journey so that people are kind of, wow, you're 10% done, oh, you're 30%, now you're halfway, oh, you're 70, 80%, you're almost finished, and wow, first draft finished. And then when you're able to describe that whole process of creation, it gets people really excited and even feel like they're involved in your success. So if you have time, as you write your book, I suggest that you slowly start looking at the different parts and start working on it. I mean, after the first draft, it is the second best time to work on these parts, because once you turn it over to your editor, it may take him or her 2 or 3 weeks. So you have that, that kind of free time to work on, your cover, your title page, your copyright page, your dedication page, forward, intro, main body, especially if you want to work on a glossary of terms, and especially the bibliography, that takes some work, and even the index, if you want to do one. Of the 4 books that I've created, I've always wanted to put an index in, never managed to, so 4 of my books have no index. But for those of you seriously considering, well, you can certainly put in an index if you want. And this is important, your advertisement or your order page. So this is another sample. Think about what other products that you'd like to market, right? Are you selling coaching? Are you selling workshops? Are you selling courses? Are you selling webinars? Whatever it is, include it either in the front or in the back. Traditionally, the advertisement order page is in the back, but increasingly, some people are putting it in the front too. So the placement of the advertisement order page isn't very important, but make sure that you do have one in your book. And for those of you who are considering writing your book in kind of a story format with a plot and characters, one thing you can do is every 5, 8, or 10 pages, you can write these kind of blank or pages that have a lot of white space, but which have a lesson in them. So in this case, this is for my Job Farmer book. One of my pages said, hunting can be fraught with uncertainty and danger. So there were around 22 of these illustrated pages. They actually had the same hunter and farmer image. I couldn't afford to pay an illustrator and pay for 22 different illustrations. So what I did was I paid him for one illustration and kept repeating those same illustrations, but just putting different lessons on top of it. Other pieces you can add are end of chapter lessons or exercises. Tony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within, and I think his first book, Personal Power, had end of chapter lessons or exercises. What this does is to reinforce the teaching, and it gives people something to do. And you can also include a study guide at the back with questions, and so that your book becomes ideally targeted to people who want to form book clubs. Okay, so hard copy versus electronic copy. So some people write books with the aim of just releasing it in electronic format, which is fine. Hard copy, obviously you have to print it, sell it, and for some people that's a hassle. But if you're going to the corporate market, having a hard copy is always useful because people want to hold, touch things. bring it home, read it and put it by the bedside and read it over a span of a week or several weeks. And also, it's something that you can hold in your hand when you're on stage, right? Oh, this is my book, buy my book. By the way, look at that table. I have about 20 or 30 books there. It's proof that you're an author. Most people who just write books purely electronically, they aren't taken as seriously by the corporate market because they invariably ask, where's your book? If you have nothing to hold or to show, then they're like, okay, are you a real author? Even though some real authors may only have electronic copies, but generally in the real world, people want to see and hold and touch something three-dimensional. Okay, so again, if we talk about industry averages and standards, I think I showed you earlier that there are two sizes. So for my first 3 books, we used the 5 1/4 by 8 inches. But these books are between 22 to about 30,000 words, and then for the Maverick Effect, I had doubled my output. I had 60,000 words. So about 200 pages in a larger 6 by 9 inch size. I personally favor the smaller one. What's going to happen is if you have probably below 35,000, even probably up to 40, your work might fit into the smaller format. If it's 50 to 55,000 and up number of words, then you might want to go bigger. And generally, I've always kind of tended to gravitate towards standard uncoated 28 pounds. Obviously, you can go thicker. What that does, it makes your book seem like it has more pages. It's kind of a visual trick. Obviously, if you have a lot of words, you don't need to use really thick paper. You can go slightly thinner, but generally 28 pounds is good. You can go talk to a printer and look at samples of books that they may have, or you can get books that you like and then show them, the thickness of a page that you prefer, and also a style of cover that you like. And of course, for cover, there's gloss and there's matte. Right now, the trend is matte. A few years ago, it was gloss or shiny. So now it's matte. I like the look of matte. I don't like that it's not very practical because it picks up dirt much more easily. But again, that's a trend. So again, if you're deciding on cover thickness, cover finish, and interior page thickness, get some books that you like, show it to your printer, and then say, this is the thickness of page that I want. This is the thickness of cover that I want, and this is the finish that I want. Okay, so we talked about the types of covers. And then let's talk about digital versus offset printing. So what digital printing basically means, it's almost like a giant photocopier. Printing is done much more quickly as opposed to offset. It's usually done in a different city where they're so competitive that they can price it so cheaply. Some authors will even have their offset books printed abroad. And because it's so cheap, even if you do have shipping costs, it's still overall inexpensive. The only problem with offset is it takes much longer, especially if you're having to print it somewhere else in a different city or different country. So digital is best if you want to print below 1,000 copies. With offset, it becomes really value for money, or in other words, a lot cheaper if you're printing over 1,000 copies. Especially if you're only printing below 100, you don't go offset, you go digital. Proof copies, for example, which is one copy for you to see how your book looks like. That's done digitally. You can get that within 1 or 3 days. So from my experience, the minimum page count to get taken seriously is about 130, 125, 130 to be safe. If you're about 100 pages and below, then it's kind of thin. People are like, they start to have this perception of, oh, this isn't really, even if your book was so good, the page count kind of affects people's perception. I know it's kind of weird, but that's just how people are. So the way to kind of cheat on that, especially if you're between 25,000 words, is to use bigger letters and illustrations. Like my job farmer, I only had 22,000 words, but I was able to balloon that to 130 by using 22 pages of illustrations. So if you remove that, remove all the other extraneous parts, my book really only had about 99 to 100 pages. And the reason it wasn't less is because instead of having 333 pages of 333 words per page, I probably had only about 200 to 215. So I blew up the words, a lot of white space. I had these illustrations of these two characters. And that's how I got to 130. But before you print a whole ton of books, please try and get a proof copy. So a single copy so you can see how the book feels, how it weighs, and then of course get another proofreader who hasn't seen it before to see if they can catch any more spelling or grammar mistakes that may have escaped the last proofreader and editor. Okay, so your team. Let's talk about people that you're going to work with. So Upwork.com is a free website where you can register, where you can find rather inexpensive to expensive contractors or suppliers that you can work with. So for example, Laurel B is an editor and book designer. So people have different combinations of skill sets. So for $34 an hour, Laurel B will help you edit your book and design maybe the interior and exterior of your book. So in other words, she's able to do everything. But really, you have to go through each person, go through all the qualifications, and Laurel B has stated too. So with Jennifer C, she's slightly more expensive, not that much more, $35.56 per hour. She can do book editing and copy editing. So I don't know why she separated that, because a book editor most likely also does copy editing. But in any case, maybe she's trying to differentiate herself from being a magazine editor. But in any case, it looks like editing is her forte and probably not designing covers or the interior. So again, all of these people have different qualifications. So in regards to Jean Bowles, for $30 an hour, she seems to have book interior and book cover design and editing experience. So for less, you get kind of the complete package. So take note that you'll get people from as little as $5 an hour and up, some even less. So, buyer beware, be wary that sometimes you pay for what you get. So you pay less, you get less. But sometimes paying more doesn't mean that you'll get more. So you really have to go through these people, and I try and avoid Upwork for editors. But for cover design, interior design, and maybe proofreading, yes, I will consider them. For editing, I prefer someone who's been personally referred, because editing to me is kind of the gold standard. It's something by which your book is judged, and you cannot afford to let mistakes slip by. I advise you against cheaping out on the editing, especially the first stage, structural and content editing. That is the most important. On the copy editing stage, which is the later stage of editing, I mean, that's easy. You can even get that on Upwork. But for the initial, the structural and content editing, the very, very first stage of editing, that has to be done, I believe, in an English-speaking country, with English as the first language. Okay, so critics and haters. Okay, my favorite part. So 80-20 rule. So remember this, the Pareto rule? How this originated was Vilfred Pareto, an Italian, I think he was an economist, said that 20% of the world's population controls 80% of its wealth. In the workplace, this translates to 20% of the workforce generating 80% of a company's output. In the real world, I use the Pareto rule as 1 out of 5, which is 1 being 20%, will like your book, and 4 out of 5 will dislike your book. So it's super conservative. I mean, it could be high as 2 people liking your book out of 5 or 40%. But you know what? I like to be conservative. So rather than, well, what's the takeaway here? Takeaway is rather than having 7 billion, expecting 7 billion people on the planet, meaning everyone, like your book, just take a small chunk of this. Okay, so let's take the English-speaking world. So let's say let's pretend your book is your book is targeted to the English-speaking portion of the planet. So how many English speakers are there? Roughly, there's 335 million. So not even 1 billion, right? So we're not in high school. We're not trying to be popular to everyone. We just want to be popular to a small, specific segment of this market. So taking this 335 million, how many fans do you need? Do you need all of them to like your book? Well, it's not necessary. So all you need really is a small chunk of it, maybe 1%. So 3.35 million. That's all the fans that you need. You don't need all 335 million people to like you because, first of all, that's not possible. So this 3.35, this 1%, 3 million fans of yours, it's all you need to be rich and famous. So remember, you don't need everyone to like you. You just need 20% or 1 out of 5. Okay, writing best practices. Here we are again, probably for the 3rd time. So remember to keep your writing time sacred, right? So establish a time of day, and then make up, kind of talk to your family, tell them that during whatever time of day you choose to write, whether it's early morning, late evening, early evening, that you can't afford to be interrupted. So spell out your rules in advance so that there's no kind of heartache or hurt feelings. Just tell them, you know what, it's something you need to do for the next month or 2 or 3 so that they know that this time is your time, your writing time, and you can't be interrupted. And if you plan to write a bibliography, underline or encircle words or phrases or sentences that you intend to footnote and reference later on in your bibliography. So the worst part to do this is after you've finished writing your book. You want to do it as you're writing. Same thing with indexing. If you index after you finish your book, you might need an extra 1 or 2 months just to do this. So a valuable shortcut is footnote along the way and index along the way. So any potential words that you feel might need defining in a glossary of terms or an index, or just referencing it in an index, just mark it as you write. And of course, same for the glossary. If you want to create a glossary, again, more parts, more work. So I've never written a glossary, I've never written an index, but I've always see the need for footnoting, especially if it's a work that requires you citing some research, some clinical studies, some papers, other books. I like to footnote. Index and glossary creation, that just adds a couple more weeks. Okay, so let's get to homework. So think of yourself as a brand. And as a brand, think of yourself as someone who needs to build a list of fans and a list of joint venture partners. Or you need to think about aligning yourself with some other influencers and thought leaders who may have their own books, but more importantly, who own lists of who own names lists that number in the 1,000 and up. Okay, so how do you put the word out there that you're about to launch a book? Okay, start with getting just one speech this month, or during the month that you're about to start writing. So assume that you're starting to write on month 2, because this is the 4th session. This is the formal end of our course. Month 2 is just, you send me email questions and answer you back. So during month 2, try and aim to get one free speech, right? I don't care if it's in your son's or daughter's PTA, or in front of university students, or in front of women entrepreneurs, or in front of a nonprofit association, or even if it's Toastmasters, get an opportunity to speak. And in the following month, get 2 speeches. And the month after, get 3 speeches. And then from the 4th month and onward, try and see if you can get 1 speech a week, whether free or paid. So why? Why do that? Well, you want to spend the first 3 to 6 months as you're writing your book, as you're completing it, finishing the cover, laying out the interior, doing all that lovely stuff, and even building your list of influencers and followers. You want to practice as a speaker, especially if you're not used to speaking, especially if you're terrified of speaking. Because guess what? If you're going to write a how-to book, people are going to ask you to talk about it. So if you haven't really thought about talking about your book, well, you might want to think about it now, because next step for you is to try and overcome your fear of public speaking as fast as possible. And if you are comfortable with public speaking, you want to up your game and become a very interesting and engaging speaker. And that takes work, because a lot of people are kind of dry and maybe a little boring on the stage. And you have to remember that as a speaker, you're now an entertainer, right? Remember that education, informing people, enlightening, inspiring them, that's 50%. The other half is making sure they don't fall asleep. So you have to be entertaining. And my favorite kind of way to cope with getting over not being a very good speaker is practice. Practice makes perfect. And then build your base of followers and your list of influencers or thought leaders by networking. Even if you only have to do it once a week, more is better, of course. If you can go 3 times, the 3rd time can be on the weekend at casual events or occasions, get-togethers with family and friends, and the 1 or 2 times can be during weeknights, between Tuesday and Thursday or even Friday. These can be more business-oriented events where clearly there are people there who are looking for things to promote. You want to find people who are looking for things, products, services, personalities, or people to promote. So once they find you, they're like, okay, you're coming up with a new book. Okay, great. The next question they might ask you is, okay, do you have anything to follow up that with? Do you have a course, program, webinar, that kind of thing? Because they might be wanting to promote that in exchange for a referral fee, which is par for the course. It's normal. And then really start to think about writing, aiming for X amount of pages per week. So if you're able to write 3 to 6 pages a day, that means you'll be able to write in a week 15 to 30 pages a day. If you write 1 page a day, you'll end up with 5. So let's look at how that translates to numbers. So remember that 1 standard page is about 333 words. So 3 pages is about 1,000 words. So if you can write a minimum of 1,000 words a day or 3 pages, you're making fairly good progress. If you're able to write double that, or 6 pages, or about 2,000 words a day, then you'll be able to finish faster, right? So if you have you're planning a 40,000 word book, you have to write 50,000 for your first draft, right? Because remember, you lose 10 to 30%. So 50,000 first draft, if you lose 20% of that, that goes down to 40. So to get to 50,000, by writing 1,000 words a day or 3 pages, that means it'll take you 10 weeks, right? Because if it's 1,000 a day times 5, that's 5,000. So to get to 50,000 words, you need 5,000 times 10 weeks. So that's 2.5 months to finish your first draft. And then month 2 will be, and then another 3 to 4 weeks for editing. So 2.5 months to first draft, a month to edit. so you're 3.5 months. And assuming you have no second and no third draft, assuming that you were able to plan your book so well that your editor didn't have to do a lot of work editing, just minor grammar and spelling checks. So at a month to your initial 2.5 months draft, so you're up 3.5 months. And you know what? While your editor is working, you can also have your cover design during that same 3 to 4 week period. So you're getting 2 people to work on different sections of your book. And while that editor is working to clean up your book, you can work on the order advertisement page, you can work on the introduction page, you can work on the acknowledgments page and the ISBN page. So if you can get all of that done, you can get kind of a print-ready version of your book within 4 months, right? Because really, once it's print-ready, during the last week or two, all print, especially if you're going digital, all they need is about 2 or 3 days. So that takes care of your 4 months. That's if you're writing 40,000 words. Faster even if you write 25 to 30,000 words. But if you're writing 60 to 80,000, it might take you an extra 2 weeks to a month longer. In any case, we want you to stay within that 6 months. And for you not to take too long to finish your book. Okay, so in the meantime, one of the first things you can do before you even get very far is to get a dummy book cover made. You can do that from the first week. So the reason we want you to do that early, so it can be front facing like this. It can be kind of angled or side facing, like one of these 2 books. The reason for that is so that you can announce to decision makers, especially in the corporate space or the nonprofit space, that, hey, this is me, this is who I am, these are the topics I speak about, this is my upcoming book, I'm available to speak. So you want to be able to show people that, hey, you're serious, these are your topics, and you're ready to get on stage and influence people or inspire them to take action. Right? So you can do that starting now. So don't wait till your first draft's done. I recommend if you want to especially be able to practice speaking. First thing you do is get a dummy book cover made, slap a working title, and remember it's a working cover. It's not the final cover. You may end up changing your title and your subtitle and the look and feel of your final cover. That's why if you can get it done cheaply through Upwork.com or get a niece or a nephew to do it for you for free, then you save money. But at least you have something to show to people, to decision makers, so they can start hiring you and putting you on stage. Okay, assignment number 2. This is very important. Work backwards from your launch date. So let's assume that today's January 1st, just to make things easy. So when do you officially want to launch your book? So we said that this is a 4-month program, 120 days. Do you want to launch January, February, March, April? Do you want to launch by April 31st? Maybe give yourself some room and launch it on the end of the 5th month, so by May 30th, right? Or even June 15 or June 30th. So once you pick a launch date, you have to work backwards. And it has to be a launch date that's achievable for you. So for some of you who are more comfortable and know exactly what you need to do, maybe the end of 4, even 5 months to give yourself a 1-month buffer might be comfortable enough. But for some of you, maybe you might want to announce your launch date on the end of the 6th month, so June 30th, or maybe sometime in the 7th month, just to give yourself room, especially for waiting for some of those reviews. Because remember, all that we've spoken about so far is things from your ends, things you can control. So the first draft, you can control that. But once it goes to editing, that's somebody else. So depending on their workload and how quickly their turnaround time is, someone who doesn't have a lot on their plate might be able to give it to you. Might be able to work on your fixing your draft within 3 to 4 weeks. But someone who's very busy might return it to you in 2 or 3 months. So that just adds and prolongs the whole process. So work backwards. Pick a launch date. So if it's January 1st today, for example, pick a date not too far away, right? You don't want to pick 12 or 15 months from now. Because what that only does is just expands the amount of time you've given yourself for writing your first draft. And believe me, you don't want to spend more than 3 months writing your first draft. The closer you can finish it within a month, maximum 2 months, maybe okay, 2.5 months, the better. Because the last thing you want to do is after 4, 5, or 6 months is keep going back to your desk, writing and writing. You'll get burned out. Now, the faster you can complete your first draft, the sooner you can work on other parts. Okay, so once you know your launch date, let's pick June 30th. Right? So you give yourself essentially 7 months, just to give yourself room. Okay, or even June 1st, 6 months, more than enough time. So that will give you an estimate of how long you need to work on your first draft. So if you're giving yourself 6 months from January 1st to do an official launch, and when I say official launch, Amazon and Printbook, including your party, your launch party, a real party, not a virtual party with people and drinks and cheese and wine, that kind of thing. And that's all targeted on June 1. That means you really have to finish your book within 3 months. I'm talking first draft, not edited yet, right? And in that case, if you're able to finish your book within 10 weeks, 12 weeks, or even 16 weeks, actually no, 16 weeks is too long, 10 or 12 weeks, so that's 2.5 to 3 months to finish your first draft. And by the way, that's a fairly reasonable amount of time. That means you have another month for the editing, and the cover design can also be done on the 4th month, and then the printing on month 5. So remember, your book release, your official launch date is on month 6. So you have month 5, for a buffer. And remember, once you also have to submit your first draft or manuscript for review by your readers. And some people will wait to submit their manuscript when it's cleaned up to their reviewers because they're uncomfortable giving people kind of a shoddy, not clean first draft, to feel insecure. Personally, since I can more or less clean my own manuscript, I'll spend another 2 or 3 weeks myself cleaning my own manuscript before I give it to an editor. And that, by the way, is an important best practice. Before you turn your manuscript to your editor, now this is a time when you can go back to edit and maybe polish it a little bit. So once you finish your first draft, let's say it takes you 2.5, 3 months, you can spend a week or 10 days just cleaning it up. So the reason for that is, again, to reduce the cost of your paying somebody else, in other words, a copy editor or a content editor, to clean up your work. So if you do your own cleaning and you're happy with it, and then you can give this copy, the copy of this manuscript for review by your readers. So let's say you finish within 10 or 12 weeks. Let's say 10 weeks, and then you spend another 2 weeks cleaning it up yourself. So by month 3, or rather by the start of month 4, you can give your readers a heads up, especially your Amazon reviews, and say, hey, I'm done with my book, the first draft. It's not perfect, but it's not completely free of errors, but I've kind of cleaned it up myself. It hasn't been edited professionally yet, so I hope you'll be understanding if you see any mistakes. By the way, could you return it to me? This is important. In 3 or 4 weeks. So keep in mind, people don't need more than a month to read your book. More than that, that means they're not even reading your book. They haven't opened your book, and they don't plan to, right? So give them 3 or 4 weeks so that by month 5, you're ready to turn this over to a printer. Remember, while people are reading your first manuscript, several things are going on. That month 4 is critical. Your editor is cleaning it up. your cover designer is working on the cover, and maybe you might have a website person working on your website. Again, go for a simple website. Use a template if necessary. Keep your costs down. And then at the same time, you have people reading your manuscript. So that when your book is launched during month 6, they're ready to put their Amazon review the day that it launches. And this is important. People need to submit the review on the day of the launch within that same 24-hour period. If you can get 70 to 100 people to give you reviews, and the only way to do that is to let them read it in advance, and then when they go to Amazon, you have to price your book at 99 cents. So if your book's like regular retailing for about 14, 18, or 20 bucks, on your launch day, actually on the first week after you launch your book, from the date that you launch it, you price your book at 99 cents. That way, if they need to buy a copy, then it's not painful. It's like, oh, it's 99 cents. Sure, no problem. I'll support you. I'll buy a book for 99 cents. Oh, and by the way, here's my review. I'm ready with it. I upload it on that day. And that's the advantage that you'll have over people who haven't enlisted the help of their friends to review their book in advance. So people will normally ask people to review their book after they printed it, after they launch it. Guess what? So the reviews get done over 30 days, the month after it launches. So there's no excitement, there's no buzz, as opposed to watching your reviews all get submitted in the same 24-hour period from 0 to 10 to 30 to 60 to 100, all in the same 24-hour, that first day of the launch. That's exciting because people are like anticipating. I've had people who are like, I was counting down to the launch. I made sure my review was submitted on the launch, and then for weeks after, they're going to be asking, how are your sales? How's it doing? So that's why you list people from the very beginning, from the time that you announce that you're going to write it, to the time that you're doing your first draft, designing the cover, waiting for them to read it, reminding them, 2 weeks, 1 week. By the way, launch date is on June 1 or June 15, so on and so forth. Remember to upload your review on Amazon. Give them instructions if necessary. Some people may not have Amazon accounts. The important thing is price it at 99 cents. You don't have to put it to 0. Price it at 99 because it has to be a valid sale, because 0 means you just gave it away. It doesn't have the same impact. And then once it's 99, raise it after a week or even 2 weeks back to the normal price. This is just to allow people to buy your book, submit their reviews, and enable you to rack 100 or more reviews. Okay, so remember, if your launch day is June 1, you have to give your manuscript about 5 weeks before, because you have to give people about 3 or 4 weeks to read your book. So if you can even give it 6 weeks before, that would be good. So that's why you have to work backwards from your launch date. So you choose a launch date far enough in advance to give you time to edit, to give you time to clean it up before you turn it over to your editor, and to give time for you to give it to people, because they will need, again, 3 to 4 weeks to read it, and to give them kind of space to wait for your launch date. So you don't want to give it too far in advance. So if you're launching June 1, for example, you don't want to give it in March or April. That's too early. Give it to them like middle of May, so that gives them about 4 to 6 weeks to kind of read it, compose a review, and then kind of wait for about a week or 2 until your launch. So that 4 to 6 weeks, or that 5 to 6 weeks, is just enough time to keep them excited, to make them realize, this is time sensitive, and that, it's a big launch, it's a coordinated launch, it's a worldwide international launch, and then, I'm launching my hard copy, my electronic copy at the same time, and oh, by the way, I'm holding a party, and a number of them are going to say, oh, too bad I couldn't join you, because some of them might be in different cities. But you want to create that excitement of, this is a big deal. This launch date is important. That's why if you give yourself that deadline and you tell people, shoot, imagine, you'll have less incentive to keep pushing it back. Because if you do, you'll be like the boy or the girl that cried wolf. No one's going to believe you anymore after your second or third delay. At the very least, you want a real deadline to aim for so that people know. Oh, okay. So June 1st, you'll be launching a book. Great. Okay, so I'll be looking out for that. You know what? Every time you see them or talk to them, they'll remember that. So how's your book? You're 5 months out. You're 3 months away. You're 2 months. You're 1. Okay, so where's the manuscript? Do you want me to read it? Okay, so that kind of thing. So again, the secret is not to make people read it when you launch your book. The secret is to forward a PDF to your entire network, and then for them to just buy the book in order for them to be able to write or upload a review. So you don't, remember, people should not do the review after the launch. They should do it before. They should only buy a book pretty much to be able to make Amazon count it as a sale. That's the whole logic of making them buy a 99-cent version. It has to count as a sale for it to count as a valid review. That's kind of how Amazon works. Okay, so that concludes my 4-week Get It Done in 120 Days. So for month 2, please feel free to email me your questions at george@georgeverdolaga.com. I look forward to seeing you finish your book. So 2 months after you start, or about 8 weeks, should be the earliest. Or if you can finish it in 6 weeks, that'd be great. So aim for writing your book, your first draft, within 6 to 10, or even maximum of 12 weeks. Then that means you're making fairly good progress. So try to go 1 chapter per week. So 1 chapter would be between 1 to 2,000 words per day, or about 5 to 10,000 words per week. So high number would be about 6 pages per day. If you're making less than that, don't feel too bad about it. Some people write fast, some people write slow. Remember, you're competing against yourself. You're not competing against anybody else, and especially you're competing against a deadline that you're going to set yourself, because you're going to have to give people a heads up. By the way, I plan to finish a book by, right? So that they can kind of schedule it in. That they know that they're going to review your book, that they will look forward to receiving an electronic manuscript that they can review, and so that they can log into Amazon or create an account if they don't have one, and buy a book for 99 cents. So again, these are the parameters you have to work with. So if you write at 2,000 words per day, 5 days a week, times 8 weeks, you will come up with 80,000 words for a first draft. So you may write more than this or less. Again, that's up to you. You will know how many words your book is going to end up with. I leave that in your hands. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you finish your book. Thank you.